Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video, I'm going to be letting you know if you should play Ret Paladin in the War Within. Let's first get started talking about hero talents. So hero talents are the big new thing for the War Within, and pretty much everybody wants to have kind of cool hero talents or hero talents that feel fun in general. And in this case, Ret Paladin is pretty lucky because both of our hero talent options are actually pretty fun. Herald of the Sun is one we're going to be starting with. This is what you'll see in the background footage in the video playing in a Mythic Plus dungeon. Herald of the Sun is a very fun, just like the other one is, hero talent to play with. This one does focus more on AoE. The highlights of it are, again, big AoE damage, modifying your Divine Storm in many different ways. It also puts a dot on enemies. It also can technically heal your allies as it kind of shares the hero talent with Holy. Put dots on enemies, and keeping up with the AoE theme, it actually does this thing where you connect with the enemies that have your Dawnlight on them. That's the dot that you're putting on them. It connects with them, and it puts like a red laser beam. It's kind of supposed to be fire damage, right? Radiant damage. And it kind of burns all the enemies that it passes through. If you've played Death Knight in the past, you could maybe remember when you Death Knight and your minion have a line between them and it kind of can burn things that are in between those two things. It's the exact same idea here, and you just want to put as many enemies through those lines as possible, and it does quite a bit of damage, and it's just actually really fun to play. You also, on activation of your Avenging Wrath, your wings, you also get a free Holy Power Spender as well, so that's a Final Verdict or Divine Storm. This allows you to just immediately do at least 2 Divine Storms, just immediately doing just big AoE damage. Again, this is mostly for AoE. It's not as solid on single target stuff, but this is really fun to play with in AoE. And it just feels very rewarding to play. It feels powerful. You can see it with the line, and it just feels powerful. The other hero talent option is called Templar. So Templar is a little bit more single target focused. However, it does have some cleave as well, so it's not completely unviable in a Mythic Plus setting, especially if you're pulling one pack at a time, but it is definitely more for single target and just a little bit of cleave damage as well. The highlight of Templar is Hammer of Light. That's the main ability. What Hammer of Light does is when you use your Wake of Ashes, it then turns into, for the same button, turns into Hammer of Light. It costs 5 Holy Power, so all of your Holy Power, and it just does a massive single target / cleave attack that hits your enemies, and it does a ton of damage. So obviously, with Wake of Ashes being a 30-second cooldown, you get to do this 2 times per minute. However, there's a talent in Templar that also gives you a stacking buff that when that gets to max stacks, you also get a free Hammer of Light as well. So you can actually get like 3 Hammer of Light per minute, and they just feel very strong. It feels very rewarding to press this button. It's just a big old strong attack, a huge single target or cleave as well, burst of damage, and it just feels super rewarding to play. Everything in Templar kind of works off of that. There's falling hammers that come down for additional cleave damage. They can kind of scale a little bit with crit. Which is kind of fun too. If you have like a hammer fantasy, as some paladins do, this is definitely something that's going to excite you. It also has a little bit of defensiveness in this hero talent as well, with a absorb shield and a heal as well in this hero talent. So it's a nice little bonus for you, especially in a raid where you might want to be using this more, having that little bit extra defensiveness to it there. So both hero talents, they feel very rewarding and fun to play. The play styles of both of them I've had a lot of fun with, and I've done a ton of stuff with both of them. So definitely lucky in this case. A lot of specs did not have multiple fun hero talents to choose from, or to play both of which with. The other interesting thing about Ret Paladin going into the War Within is kind of a change, is we now have some mastery scaling. I wanted to point this out because this is kind of an important thing, especially for Ret Paladin. Especially in Dragonflight, we didn't really scale with much. We had a little bit of haste scaling, but we were one of those specs that kind of stacked verse up. You may have heard of this with like monks. It's typically not a Windwalker monk specifically, but it's typically not something good that you want to be stacking up is versatility. So now with redesigned mastery, we have some kind of long range goals, like, okay, maybe one day we'll have this much mastery, we'll be able to do a ton of damage. It's kind of fun to do. At the end of BFA, for example, with Corruption, one of the best builds was a mastery build for Ret Paladin, stacking all mastery with Corruption. And it's kind of back in that same notion again, after we had a little bit of hiatus from that kind of play style, with mastery being a little bit gimped for Ret Paladin, especially in Dragonflight. But we do have a little bit of scaling now, which is a big change from Dragonflight. Next, let's talk about the viability of Ret. First of all, in PvE endgame, so kind of meta PvE, is it going to be a meta class? Is it going to be something you're going to need in a raid? Is it going to be something you're going to need in Mythic Plus? And in both those cases, I'm going to say no. And here's why. So Ret does have good survival, but we have been nerfed from our unkillable selves in Dragonflight. There's been multiple changes to defenses here and there, some on the Paladin tree, some specifically on the Ret tree. Again, we're not stacking verse anymore, and so losing survivability through lack of verse, instead of having high 30% verse, people are going to have 5% verse or something, and that's going to drastically decrease the survivability of Ret. So it's not that they're weak, it's not that they're paper thin anymore. Ret Paladins are no longer made of glass, but not a lot, but a good amount of our survivability has been nerfed going into the War Within. Utility-wise, this is a big thing. Ret Paladin doesn't really bring anything unique to your group as far as utility goes. In most cases, a Holy Paladin is going to be better. In many cases, a Prop Paladin could be better. Ret does not bring anything unique utility-wise. Now, of course, if you really want a Blessing of Protection, or you just really want Devotion Aura, and no other Paladins are signing up, then of course, you could have some usefulness there, battle res as well. It's not that there's nothing useful about Ret, it's just that there's nothing unique about Ret Paladin that they bring. So when so many specs and classes bring something unique and Ret Paladin doesn't, that does kind of put you, into that small group of things that does not bring something unique, and so becomes a little bit less valuable because of that, which is not, a good thing for Ret. When it comes to the only thing that possibly could be good for Ret is it does have the damage. The way Ret is built right now does have like kind of a damage profile that could be useful if the damage is tuned high. So Ret does suffer from the old being a melee hybrid class, and you're not allowed to be super strong. If you're like a feral druid, if you're a survival hunter historically, although there's been some cases where they let survival be really strong, enhancement shaman, you're talking about things that can sometimes crack into the top 5, but typically it's not the top 1, typically not top 3 in most cases, and then occasionally you crack up there a little bit in a patch or something like that, and that's just going to be based on tuning. Ret has a very good damage profile. If it's tuned very well, then Ret could be valuable as far as just bringing pure damage, but that's of course completely on Blizzard, and we don't know for sure if that's going to be the case or not. It could be. Ret could be very, very strong. It could be the number 4 possible damage dealer, and then all of a sudden people kind of like having Ret, or it could be like the 17th best spec in damage, and then also not bringing the unique utility or anything else, and then all of a sudden nobody really wants a Ret. So things can change in that case, but I would basically lean on the side of it's probably not going to be meta, at least in season 1 of the War Within, where we are right now. When it comes to PvP, when it comes to meta PvP, I think Ret's pretty much in the same position that it's in Dragonflight, where if it's with the right group, if it's with the right composition in like a rated arena, for example, it can be good, like with a warrior. If you're with a really skilled warrior and warrior is also strong, Ret kind of shines in that environment. Occasionally Ret can team up with some other things as well, but that's really where you see, most Ret's shining is a kind of Ret warrior. And it's very reliant on having that composition. I think that's going to be largely the same. Ret's, we already talked about the defensive issues or the defensive nerfing, so Ret's going to struggle surviving a little bit in arena. Going to do, again, when we talk about damage profiles, going to do good damage in arena, very bursty type damage, which is generally good. But again, it's going to be kind of bullied by caster teams, at least if they're really skilled and they're not with that warrior that you also kind of have to bully around. So it's going to be very reliant on composition, in my opinion. If you're a high rated PvP player and you want to chime in on that, feel free to do so in the comments. I can highlight good comments about PvP. I'm no PvP master, but from what I can tell, and the PvP that I do is mostly going to be the same as Dragonflight, and maybe even slightly worse where we are right now. When it comes to having fun in PvP, though, like doing unrated things in PvP, for example, or maybe even the Battleground Blitz, which is like rated battlegrounds that you can queue for. I do suspect Ret will be fun playing for that. In that kind of setting, I think Ret thrives a little bit more when they can't. You can still be focused, but you have bubble, you have these things that maybe you can survive a little bit longer. So maybe you being focused isn't always a bad thing because other people can kind of do other things. You know, I tend at least to have a lot more fun in that kind of setting as a Ret Paladin. And so I imagine that's going to continue as well, especially since the hero talents are kind of fun to play. I imagine when you're doing something for fun, like a random battleground, and you're playing fun hero talents and you're on a profile of a Ret Paladin with the bubble, with the lay on hands, with the bop against a melee, and being able to kind of sustain yourself, which is kind of what a Ret Paladin kind of does. That could probably still be quite fun. So if casual PvP, probably good. Rated PvP, probably not meta, but if warrior's very strong and there's good combinations for that, definitely has room to thrive and be good, but I wouldn't count on it, basically. Lastly, let's talk about open world and delves. So open world delves are supposed to kind of mimic open world. It's a new end game content. When it comes to this kind of stuff, we kind of just talked about it with sustainability. This is kind of the biggest reason I actually even switched to Ret Paladin to begin with. I used to be a warrior main, and I just didn't like not being able to sustain myself. You know, things have changed throughout the years. Warriors can sustain themselves certainly more than they could back in the past. You know, back in the past, a warrior needed a healer, for example, to ever do anything. And I kind of switched to Paladin so I could kind of heal myself, so I could kind of keep myself alive and things like that. And, you know, largely that's still the case for Ret Paladin. And, you know, being more tanky than we were, like, you know, a couple expansions ago or whatever, and also still having good self-healing and good options in that case, makes Ret very viable in that kind of content. It's going to be fun doing outdoor world things. You're going to be hammer of lighting a mob in outdoor world and doing a ton of percent of its health in one shot. That's going to feel good. You're going to go into delves, and you can either slow pull it with Templar and hammer of lighting everything, or you could try to do a big pulls with your Templar on, Herald of the Sun on. You can try to do some bigger pulls doing that and have fun doing both those things in Templar, as long as, you know, you can handle doing those big pulls in the delves. You're not doing too high of a delve for your gear or whatever. That could be quite fun as well. So I imagine both of those things are going to be fun. Open world, delves, all that kind of stuff. Ret set up in a very good position to have fun doing that kind of stuff. As you can see, basically, it was mostly kind of casual stuff. Will probably be pretty fun and maybe not so great on the meta side, being the absolute best possible thing to play at the very highest ends. So let's go over everything in conclusion. If you want to focus on having really good hero talents, and that's a very big thing for you, I want to play fun hero talents. I want to have rewarding buttons to press. I want to just feel like a Ret Paladin. Then in that case, Ret Paladin's probably pretty good going to the War Within. I would say that's a positive, that's a pro. If you want to be meta in PvE, so you want to be sought after, you want to be invited to all the groups, you want everyone to pick you, you want it to be easy to get into groups. Ret's probably not the case that you want to go for, at least for season 1 of the War Within. I don't see Ret being meta in any way. I know that things could change, tuning could change, for sure, but I do not see that being the case. However, after they make this video, Blizzard could tune Ret to be the strongest DPS, and that would change immediately because people are always going to want to take the strongest DPS. If you're looking to be, you know, high-end PvP, once again, I don't think this is probably going to be the best and easiest thing to pick. Of course, you know, with the right group, with the right setting, you can still thrive, you can still have success, but it's not going to be, again, the easiest thing. Now, if you're looking to have fun in PvP, then of course, you know, this could be a very fun thing to play. Again, rewarding hero talents, rewarding buttons, rewarding playstyle in a lot of ways. So it has all the things present to have fun in casual PvP. And then again, like we just talked about with the delves, with the open world, again, everything is set up for Ret to be able to have fun in that type of content and very much enjoy it. So that's kind of where Ret is right now, as far as I see it. Very, very good for casual content, and you know, it's maybe not so much on high-end content, but with upside. I would say I'm still trending in a positive direction. I just don't see it being the absolute best. If you're deciding between like a mage and a Ret Paladin, you know, maybe the mage, and you're trying to do high-end content, you know, maybe the mage is better, right? If those are your two choices, I would say. So that's going to be it for this one. As always, I do ask you to please subscribe to the channel because it helps me out a lot. If you're already a subscriber, I encourage you to check out the Patreon. And other than that, everybody, have a good one.